Assalamu alaikum. This lecture represents the first technical step in root canal treatment, which is the access cavity preparation. Access cavity preparation is defined as an endodontic coronal preparation which enables unobstructed access to the canal orifices. It begins with initial penetration into the pulp chamber, achieved by drilling on the occlusal surface of premolars and molars and the palatal surface of anterior teeth. Proper coronal access forms the foundation of pyramid of endodontic treatment. Any improperly prepared access cavity can impair the treatment. This diagram shows us the importance of access cavity preparation and how it will affect the next steps, the biomechanical preparation and the obturation, and of course the overall success of root canal treatment. Ideal access cavity. In order to achieve an ideal access cavity, it's important to get an unobstructed view into the canals. It means when we visualize the access cavity from the occlusal surface, the operator should be able to see all the canals at the same time. In ideal access cavity, files and obturating instruments should pass into the canal without touching any part of the access cavity, and this represents one of the objectives of access cavity preparation, which is achieving the straight line access. Complete caries removal is one of the requirements to achieve an ideal access cavity. Caries removal is an important step as it prevents further contamination of root canal by dental caries during the biomechanical preparation. Objectives of access cavity preparation. One of the important objectives of access cavity preparation is to achieve the straight line access, and this objective can be achieved by the removal of any tooth structure that may interfere with the insertion of the endodontic instruments and the obturation materials. The endodontic instruments and the obturation materials should be able to pass into the canal without touching any of the walls of the access cavity, as shown in the attached pictures. Proper access cavity can be achieved by complete deroofing of the pulp chamber, and this can be achieved by complete removal of the tooth structure that lies occlusal to the pulp chamber, as shown in the attached pictures. Any remnant of the roof of the pulp chamber will negatively affect the next technical steps of root canal treatment, and it will negatively affect the success of the overall treatment. Access cavity should be as much conservative as possible, and this objective should be achieved in balance with the other objectives. Conservation of tooth structure should not be an excuse for not achieving the straight line access and complete deroofing. Instrument for access cavity preparation. There are three types of dental burrs used for access cavity preparation: the access opening burrs, access refining burrs, and molar burrs. Access opening burrs. They are round burrs with 16 mm burr shanks. The shank of these burrs are 3 mm longer than standard burrs. Access refining burrs are a group of dental burrs as shown in the attached pictures. The coarse grit flame-shaped burr is used for the initial preparation. Then the refining of the walls of the access cavity will be achieved by the tapered round and diamond burrs. Molar burrs. These are long shaft, round carbide burrs which are used in slow-speed handpiece. Their long shaft increases visibility of cutting tip. They are also used for locating calcified canals because their long shaft is useful for working deep in the radicular portion. Guidelines for access cavity preparation. Before starting the access cavity preparation, we can check the depth of the preparation, and this can be simply done by aligning the burr and the handpiece against the preoperative radiograph. Access finishing is best carried out by using burrs with safe non-cutting ends. The initial penetration into the pulp chamber is usually performed by using burrs with cutting ends, and in order to complete the access cavity preparation we will need to use burrs with non-cutting ends, and the advantage of using these burrs is that they are less likely to damage or perforate the pulp chamber floor. The walls of pulp chamber should be prepared to be flared and tapered to form a gentle funnel shape with larger diameter toward the occlusal surface. Endodontic access cavity is prepared through the occlusal or lingual surface, not through proximal or gingival surface. If access cavity is made through wrong entry, it will cause inadequate canal instrumentation, resulting in iatrogenic errors. The shape of the access cavity is determined by three factors. The first one is the size of the pulp chamber. For example, in young patients, the access cavity preparation is wider than the older patients, and this is because of the difference in the size of the pulp chamber between the young and old patients. The second factor is the shape of the pulp chamber. The final outline form of the access cavity should reflect the shape of the pulp chamber. The access cavity outline form is triangular in anterior teeth, ovoid buccolingually in premolars, and trapezoidal or triangular in molars. The shape of the access cavity is also determined by the number, position, and curvature of the canals. Variation in this point may necessitate extra modification in the shape of the access preparation, and this is most common in maxillary molars. Access cavity of anterior teeth. The access cavity or the access opening of the anterior teeth is initiated at the center of the lingual or palatal surface of the anterior teeth. To perform the access cavity of the anterior teeth, direct a round burr perpendicular to the lingual surface at its center to penetrate the enamel. Once enamel is penetrated, burr is directed parallel to the long axis of the tooth until a drop in effect is felt, which means the burr has entered the pulp chamber. Once the canal orifices are located, extra preparation should be done in order to remove the lingual shoulder using gate Glidden rolls or carbide burrs to achieve straight line access. The lingual shoulder is a constriction located lingually at the junction between the pulp chamber and the root canal. Access cavity preparation for premolars. In premolars, the access opening is in the center of the occlusal surface between buccal and the lingual cusp tips. The burr should be directed parallel to the long axis of the tooth and perpendicular to the occlusal plane. Generally, the external outline form of premolars is oval in shape, with greater dimensions buccolingually. Access cavity preparation for maxillary molars. The starting point of burr penetration is on the central groove midway between the mesial and distal boundaries shown in the attached pictures. The distal boundary represents the oblique ridge, and the mesial boundary represents an imaginary line joining between the mesiobuccal cusp tip and the mesiolingual cusp tip. As shown in this picture, the shape and the outline of the access cavity of maxillary first molar are determined by the number and the location of the canals. In 80% of cases, the mesial root has two canals, MB1 and MB2. Access cavity preparation for mandibular molars. The initial penetration is done with a round burr on the central fossa midway between the mesial and distal boundaries shown in this picture. The mesial boundary is a line joining the mesial cusp tips, and the distal boundary is the line joining the buccal and lingual grooves. The outline of the access cavity of mandibular molars is either trapezoidal or rectangular in shape, depending on the number of the canals, as shown in this picture. This is the end of this presentation. Thank you very much and take care.